Hello and welcome to the 10th episode of Boots, Banter, and Beyond, the stories of Irreverent Warriors, the show where stories about how humor and camaraderie have changed our lives for the better. I am your host, Eric Schessel. Today on our show, we're going to be chatting with Bob Savin, who's the local coordinator from the Worcester chapter of Irreverent Warriors. He's been doing some great things up in Massachusetts the last few years. We're going to dive into that, as well as how he got involved with IW and what it's like being the only non-veteran running one of the chapters here for our organization. So let's go. Bob, what's going on, brother? How you doing, man?
Very well, very well. Thank you. Look at you, all fancy. That was pretty intense. Nice opening. Looks great.
I can't take all the credit. You know, I've been talking with a lot of guys. I talked with Scott Frere, Ryan Landry. They've been giving me some tips and tricks and stuff, and I'm working on improving everything that we got going on here. But it's good and it's fun, and and so far so good. So we'll just keep it going.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's nice of you to put aside the time to do this. For people to hear, for us to get involved and spread what we're doing. And it's a lot of fun to be able to do things like this and talk to people about what's going on.
Yeah, no, and that's really what it's all about, was just trying to find another avenue to reach not only our own people so they can hear our stories, but it's the people that will end up listening to this stuff down the road that have never heard of the organization or have heard of the organization but really haven't pulled the trigger yet. It's meant to kind of just hype us up and get more people active in the organization and hopefully save a few more lives. It's all about the mission.
Yeah. And then I think the other side of it too is getting to know us better. Right. I mean, we do a hike. We have, we're coordinating. We've got 100, 200 people, however many people it is, at our hikes. And of course we try to connect with everybody, but you don't get a lot of that time to do that. So this is a way for some people out there to know a little bit more about us, to see what we're all about and what's going on. And, hopefully maybe they'll then take the time to try to get to know us a little bit better at an event as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, well said. Well said. So you've been, everybody knows that you are the local coordinator for the Worcester hike, but what do you do outside of IW? So what is your day-to-day life? What does the non-IW Bob look like?
I'm really tall. I'm about 6 feet. On hike day, I shrink down to 5'7". The mohawk actually is brown. Most people see me at the hikes. I've always got my blue mohawk at the hikes. But no, reality, I mean, outside of IW, I own two private personal training studios. I've got my FT gear on. My Fitness Together sweatshirt on today, but that's what I do. Most of my days I run a personal training studio, play a lot of hockey. Haven't learned my lesson there yet. So still playing a couple of times a week and, doing a lot of hiking, getting ready for the Tough Rock Marathon coming up. But those are the types of things that, outside of IW, of course, IW takes up quite a bit of time just planning the events. Because not only are we doing Worcester, but we've got Milford as well this year. So just a lot of time involved in those things, and I enjoy it.
Awesome, yeah. And the personal training. So you have two studios.
Yes. That
you're running. So what is it? How busy are you running two studios?
It's a long day, but it's broken up, and that's why I still, I get a lot of time to hike in the middle of the day. A lot of clients want to come in early in the morning. They want to work out after work. But my day usually starts. I'm usually in the studio by 5:30 in the morning every day. And, I'll start off in one studio, probably, hang out there till about 9 a.m. and then shoot on over to the other studio. They're only about 5 miles apart. And then I'll spend the rest of the day into the early evening, usually around 6, 7 o'clock at night. I'll hang out at the other studio and train clients there.
Nice. Very, very busy schedule in the life of Bob outside of IW. How did you even first get involved with the Irreverent Warriors? How did you find out about it and get involved in the first place?
Yeah. So back in 2015. And this sort of ties in with the studio too, because for me, every Thanksgiving we would do a fundraiser. Rather than sort of go anywhere, travel anywhere at Thanksgiving time. We like to do sort of a holiday workout. And so we would do this fundraiser every Thanksgiving morning. And I was looking for an organization. My wife and I started asking around about veterans organizations, and her cousin was either still active duty or just out as an Army Ranger. And he didn't really have much to offer us, but I have a cousin who I don't know if they were dating or at this point married, but a Marine. And he said, he must have been out at this point. And he says, there's an organization called the Irreverent Warriors. This was back in 2015 when IW was first started.
Yeah.
And he says, they're a little rough around the edges right now. We could use some money. So if you'd like to do a fundraiser for us, great. You might not want to go to the website. It was the very, very early days. And for those people that are listening to this that were around back then, it was really the early beginnings of Vet TV. There was a lot of stuff on there that Donnie had up. And so it really wasn't meant for the masses back then. But and so he was actually in charge of the Bethesda hike back then. And he said, but we can use some money. So we raised money for IW. We sent it off, and that's sort of what we did. And then 2016, he had moved on to work with another organization, and there were some reasons for that. But then I had an opportunity to meet my wife's cousin, Derek, and it was just a simple conversation. I mean, he asked me if I supported the military, and I really didn't have a great answer for it. And, I knew I had donated some money, and being here in the Northeast at the time, I didn't come from a military background, and I didn't really know a whole lot of people that were involved in service. So my answer to him was simply, I don't know how. And I sort of got this sort of blank stare. And what I realized, without making the story too long, but what I really figured out from the conversation was that it wasn't just about throwing money at an organization. There needed to be more. You needed to invest your time. You needed to understand what the issues were and how to better help. And if you're going to donate money, that's fine, but understand where it's going to, why you're donating it, and maybe some other ways that you can get involved. Right. So, in 2017, Roy, my cousin's husband died by suicide. And we didn't really have a chance at that point to connect again. And I knew how important Irreverent Warriors was to him. And it so happened that it was shortly after that. And I don't know how my wife had heard about it, how Val had heard about it, but they were doing a hike in Boston in 2017. And we just felt this pull to be there, and said, we have to see what it's about, learn what it's about, and carry on that mission for him, because he couldn't anymore. And so we went to that hike and just sat there and tried to get people registered by paper. I remember walking around and being really nervous about like interrupting people's conversations and getting people to be where they needed to be. And off we went. And I tell you, by the end of that hike, we felt included, welcome, like we belonged with that group. And that's just sort of what drove us from that point further.
And I mean, you mentioned something really important was, because a lot of times for non-veterans, when they're asked, do you support the military? And it's like, well, a lot of us do. A lot of people do, but they don't know how. And that's probably why it's tough to get involved in stuff like that. And because the not knowing how, it can be a deterrent from getting involved in the beginning. And so the fact that you were able to get beyond that, and just, even if it just started doing the fundraiser and then coming out and volunteering, I mean, that's, you took that leap. And like you said, you've been involved ever since.
Right. Yeah. And it was, rather interesting. Like I said, I mean, when we started out, it was just, we didn't know what to do. We didn't know what our goal was for the day or what we were supposed to be doing. And there wasn't really much organization to it other than as we went through the streets, I mean, we had mission cards, and I think I sort of just kind of created a role for myself, where we'd be stopping traffic and people were honking and wondering what was going on. So I just ran around. I jumped off a truck and started handing out mission cards. and just started saying, thank you. I'm sorry, that we're keeping you waiting. Here's what we're all about today. Here's what's going on. And just trying to talk to people about what we're doing and ultimately just try to keep the hikers safe.
Right. How is your drive? You mentioned your drive, for doing this stuff. How has your drive evolved over the years? Because I mean, you're talking that was back in 2017.
Yeah.
So how has your drive evolved since then?
Well, that's what I mean is, I started doing things like that, like passing out the cards and just watching over people. And, it was really, I mean, the drive has been just to make an impact and to provide an experience for our hikers and, make sure that they had the greatest experience that they could have that day, whatever that meant to each individual person. So at stops, talking to people, making sure they had enough water, making sure that they were connecting to somebody else. If they just needed a moment alone to shield them when they needed, shielded from other people. So those were just things that were instinctive to me as I got familiar and comfortable with the crowd. And then just the hikes themselves. I mean, how I got, a little closer was that we had done a hike in Milford. I want to say it was probably 2018 or so, where the Milford hike is on a old rail trail, and there's no real visual support from our volunteers. And we felt like there was somebody that was going to be needed with visual support. So, I said, all right, well, I'll stay 100 yards or so back and just make sure that I've got eyes on people and I can make sure that we're not falling behind. There weren't too many people back then that wanted to do that. And I knew the trail real well being from this area. So I said, all right, yep, I'll stay back and just kind of keep an eye on things. And, and it just grew from there. I got to know people a little bit more. Like I said, I tried to stay far behind, and people were more worried about me than I was worried about them at times. But those things just evolved from there.
And I mean, you've grown with IW really since then, and now here you are, Bob Savin, the local coordinator of not only one but two hikes. But so what does it feel like for you being the only non-veteran as a local coordinator and in this organization that is predominantly just veterans and military people? How does that make you feel, and what's it like?
Well, it's an honor for sure, and it was like everything else. Like that first hike I was at, definitely intimidating. To go to the first conference, to be the first non-veteran in that capacity. I will say I'm not the only one anymore, so I will give a shout out to Jess Forsyth in Key West.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and it was great to meet her this past year at conference, because they said, I remember how I felt last year at conference where, I sort of just wanted to go with the flow, hide under the table. And of course, what's the first thing we do is, 4 things, name, where you're from, what's your title on the hike, and what branch. And I just wanted to crawl under the table at that point.
Somebody skip Bob.
Yeah. But we got through it. We had a really great time last year, and then going through it this year, I was proud to get up and say that, and then to have Jess up there as well, and I know she came up to me right afterwards and she said, I've been dying to meet you. You're the unicorn. But yeah, it was I mean, for me, the most important thing, and this is sort of like I get kind of challenged or yelled at all the time for this, is I walk around a lot, apologize. Well, I don't know that I apologize, but I say, hi, I'm Bob, I'm a civilian, and people tell me to knock it off and stop. But for me, it's important to come, to say that, because I can play it off, right? I can assimilate with everybody. I can have a good time. I can wear the hair. I have tattoos. I can fit in, but that's not what I'm trying to do.
Right.
I'm not trying to pose. I'm not trying to be somebody I'm not. I'm here to help. That's how I got involved. I took on a role that was necessary at the time. And it doesn't mean that I'll be doing this forever. I mean, hopefully other people will want to step forward. And that's part of why we're doing this, right? Is so that other people learn more about what this is all about, and they step forward. And I'm happy to be that gateway. But yeah, so that's sort of the kind of the biggest challenges of being a non-veteran in this environment.
Right. And I mean, and it's when you think about it, sure, yeah. I mean, you were, as of last year, you were, and then this year we've got another non-veteran that's taken that leap to become a local coordinator, and I got to tell you that I have mad respect for you and Jess both, because it's difficult coming into this type of an environment as somebody who is not somebody that is not a veteran, didn't serve in the military, to be part of this organization. Not only be part of this organization, but be a leader in not just for the organization, but for your entire community. Like you have, like your entire the rest of your team are a lot of them are veterans and everything, and so they're they follow your lead.
Right.
And all I can say is I am absolutely proud of everything that you have accomplished since you became obviously since I've known you in the Irreverent Warriors space, and I just appreciate everything you've done as from a veteran to a civilian. I just you got to know that that's appreciated, and it's not just by me. I'm willing to bet that everybody up in Massachusetts that goes out to the hikes that you're leading and coordinating with your team and everything, they appreciate it too.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a team effort. I mean, that's the greatest thing. That's when I stepped into the role. I said, look, I know there are things I don't know, and so I'm going to lean on people. I know how to coordinate an event. I know how to put on a show, but I don't know how impactful that is to the people that I'm trying to make an impact. And that's why I come back to that, provide the experience. Right? Yeah. We say it over and over and over again in our meetings is, how is this going to play? What's that experience going to be? It's not just for us.
Right. Absolutely. So you've got the Worcester hike there, but it wasn't always Worcester. It didn't start in Worcester. It started elsewhere. So it's undergone changes over the years. So give us the history on what is now the IW Worcester hike.
Yeah, so it started, I guess, in 2016 in Boston. Again, that was the year before that Val and I got involved. And traditionally, it would start around Castle Island in Boston, and sort of weave through the city. Ultimately, end up somewhere downtown, in the Faneuil Hall area. And like I said, we when we got involved in 2017. And I mean, just IW in general, right? I mean, there were a lot of things that were sort of hectic about running a hike back then. And being in Boston, I mean, you've got all kinds of traffic and people and tourists, and the city itself is not always the greatest for welcoming veterans. And there was just all kinds of restrictions and permits. And, I mean, we made it through, and we had a really great time. I mean, my first hike, 2017, 2018, even 2019, I mean, there were challenges, but it was great. We made the best of it. Come COVID, obviously, things were shut down for a couple of years. And then as we came back in 2022, we started to really look at it. And again, I was involved with the planning, and Gunny, Jim Shore had been running it, the prior 3 years. And, again, there was a lot of conversations with our planning team about, should we go back to Boston and what that would look like. And coming out of COVID, there were still some challenges. There were some restrictions that were unknown to us. Again, the permitting was a little unknown. And we made the decision as a group to try something different. And so in 2022, we thought, let's take a page out of the Gettysburg book, and let's look at a national park. And hey, what better place than Concord?
Right.
We've got Minuteman National Park, the Battle of Lexington and Concord. It all started here, and we said let's run with that. And so we did. We had a great hike in 22. There were some infrastructure challenges there, and then looking at it, we would have loved to continue there last year, but they were going to be possibly doing some construction in the park. So again, things were a little unknown as to whether we could continue there, and whether it was really the experience that we wanted our hikers to have. I keep coming back to those words, but did we have enough places to fit everybody at a stop? Could people sit down, or were they sitting on the ground? All of those things mattered to us. Can we feed people enough throughout the hike? And when we sort of tossed it around, we said, no, it's not going to be the experience we want. so let's think about what some other options are. And it was probably Tony Bernardo, but he had a great idea. He had lived in Worcester, and said let's give it a look. And so we did. We took a look at it, and from the get-go, everything we did in Worcester last year, they rolled out the red carpet, and they made it easy. The permitting, I mean, I joked there was a 30-page document, but everything was linked to another document, and just step by step. Every time you clicked on something, filled something out, it brought you to the next page. When we had our special events committee meeting, they asked me questions about the event, and then made sure that I had a map in place, because they wanted to sweep the streets before we got there. So Worcester, it was a fantastic experience last year. Like I said, every step along the way, we felt welcome. And so, we said we have to go back. There were more and more places that wanted us to be a part of the day there, or wanted to be part of our day. And so we said, yeah, they want us. We want to be there. And so we officially changed the name. I know that was a big thing last year. Why is IW Boston and Worcester?
Right.
So we are now officially Irreverent Warriors Worcester.
Yeah, and I remember all the stops and everything from the Worcester hike from last year were really cool. We stopped at the bar and at the hockey rink, and we got to go watch some hockey, and we were heckling the away team. And I remember that, like, I think when we walked in force and started cheering for the home team and booing the away team, I think we scared a lot of people. I mean, we had like 30 or 40 guys just like walking in there and just start cheering and hooting and hollering in all of our hike gear. And so that can be kind of intimidating. But no, the Worcester hike was a lot of fun. So I mean,
yeah, we had a great time. I mean, we were in the ballpark. We got to walk right through the Worcester Red Sox, the minor league team for the Red Sox. It's just a gorgeous park. And we did it. I mean, like I said, rolling out the red carpet. They had a massive event going on later that day. They were hosting a football game, the Harvard Holy Cross football game, one of the biggest events they have there all year. And they're like, nope, no worries. Come on in. You guys can walk right through the stadium. No problem.
Nice.
So just everywhere, was great. And I know, we all have our things that we do. I know you guys in Connecticut, carry the tombstones, carry the headstones, and, we have our reading of the names, and it just was a really special moment last year to be able to do that where we did in the Vietnam Veterans Memorial area of Green Hill Park.
Yeah.
And to be amongst those names and those stones there. It just, we talk about the irreverence, we talk about, the fun and that everybody's going to have at a hike, but to bring it back to the reason why we're there, to think about those things, to think about those troubles that people are going through, and to also spend a moment to remember those that we've lost, was an important moment for everybody. And so I loved it. I loved every bit of it.
Yeah, no, and the reading of the names always gets me. I don't think there's a dry eye there by the end. The significance of that really drives home what we're all doing out there. Like you said, like, we're here because these people can't be here anymore. And so the reading of those names is just super important. And you guys do that with class and grace, and that's epic. It's pretty awesome. And like I said, I get teared up. I know a bunch of other people do too, and I'm pretty sure there's never a dry eye by the time you guys finish reading those names.
No, I get a lot of people coming up to me afterwards, like, "Really? Did you have to do that?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, a couple of years ago when we talked about it, we weren't, I was probably the one that said, "I don't know, guys, that's pretty tough." And they said, "Nope, do it." And so, yeah, we continued with it, and I'm glad that we did, because they said at the end of it last year, you take a moment, you take a breath. We had a great lunch afterwards. We went down the hill and hit another brewery, and the party, and it's just like, okay, let's remember, but let's move on,
Yep. Absolutely.
And that was the important thing, right? And I think that speaks to sort of what we're doing, right? It's like, okay, like, don't forget, take a moment, right? Remember the people you want to remember, but we do march on.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, Worcester is the hike with humor, camaraderie, and a little bit of tears, but that's all great. So not just Worcester, but you've recently taken on the responsibility for the hike on the other side of the state over in Milford. So right. What made you decide to take that on? And what are your plans for that hike moving forward?
Yeah, so I've lived in Milford for about 20 years now. For one reason or another, I wasn't able to make some of the early hikes there. But we had done a couple, and it's an important one. It's Memorial Day weekend. So again, in one of those times where we know we need to have people together. Jesse Thompson, was the lead coordinator for that for a number of years. And then wasn't able to keep up with it last year. And so looking at it this year, I said, I don't want to go another year without this happening. So I offered if it wasn't going to be something that somebody else could step up to. I said, I live in town. It's an easy one for me to pick up. It doesn't require me to drive anywhere, go anywhere, do anything other than just check in with the people that we want to check in with and have stops at. I know most of the restaurateurs, the bar owners. I've got connections with PD and all these places. So, it was a quick and easy thing. And the hike itself, like I said, doesn't require any road closures or anything like that, because we're on the rail trail. So,
yeah.
It's a lot easier to put together. And like I said, it was important that we do it.
And it's a different vibe too.
Yes.
Like for people that have never come out to that Milford hike, man, one year, if you guys can come out to it because it's a lot more of a relaxed atmosphere. That rail trail it's all shaded, it's treed, it's a lovely walk. It's a great hike. It's very laid back atmosphere, and I dig it. I've gone the last couple of years to that hike, and it's a nice change of pace from what the Silkies hikes typically are seen as. People are still having fun. There's still the humor and the camaraderie. It's just a different vibe, and it's not a bad thing either. Like it's still a great day.
Right. And I think, about Milford, I mean, you get to sort of just connect with everybody. You're not worried about looking at the scenery, looking at the people in town, like whatever. Like I said, when we were in Boston, we had all the tourists, and, that's nice sometimes, and people want that. But I think that, it's important to let people know that it is different, and but you get more of a connection to people because you're not distracted.
Yeah, totally. What so you've got two hikes that you've been doing. You've been with the organization since 2017, 2016-ish. What are some of your favorite moments since you've become a local coordinator? And even if you don't have a favorite moment, even there's a favorite moment that was back when you were a volunteer before then.
There's so many, and I mean, like, one thing I thought of is, the connections you make with the people, with the hikers, and for me, it's the network of people that I've met from other veteran service organizations. Again, I came into this going, I don't know, we don't have veterans here in the Northeast. And now, like, every time I turn around, there's another organization, there's someone else I've met, I've known, people that have come to our hikes that run other organizations, people when I go to events that I get introduced to. And I've gotten to go to really cool events this year. I went to the Marine Corps Ball. I was at an event for a foundation, the Ahern Family Foundation, that donates to veteran organizations. I was invited to that, and I've been to the Army-Navy game this year. It's so many really cool things because I've had the opportunity to meet so many people. But I do have one moment, and I say, it comes as a coordinator because, again, you get to be in front of people. But the probably most incredible thing was getting up on that stage at the end of the hike last year, sort of closing it out, reading the final words, to the hikers, but really being able to take that opportunity at that point to say, I came in this, I said, this all started because I didn't know how to help. I didn't know how to get involved. And here I was leading that organization, leading those hikers, in just a short amount of time to that I now felt like I could look my wife's cousin in the eye and say, yep, I get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was the most impactful thing for me, since as part of the organization as a whole, but sort of coming full circle and having that moment to say, yep, I can now answer you with honesty.
Yeah, no. And I mean, and that's huge because a lot of people don't get it, and we always say that nobody understands us but us. But when you've immersed yourself into this organization and us as veterans and military people, and you've been a part of that for as long as you have, as long as with all the time and the effort that you've spent with us. Yeah, you kind of you get it. Absolutely, you get it. It's the same thing with my girlfriend, with Sarah. She's been volunteering. She's a civilian, and she gets it, but not because she served, but because she's been she's been active in the veteran community for years. So I'm sure she could empathize with you on that by saying that, yeah, she gets it too. Right. And so that's being able to get it and say that is huge. So it's, and again, I know I said it already, but like it's appreciated, the fact that not only that you get it, but you've stepped up and that you give back by doing what you do with the organization. What do you got planned for this year for Worcester? Hit me up. What do you got planned?
So in Worcester, it's the first time in a real long time that we haven't really had to like reinvent the wheel. So that's the nice part, right? Is we had such a great time last year that we don't want to make too many major changes. That said, we got a lot of people that want to be a part of this now. And so what we're trying to figure out is like, well, how do we get all that in? And how do we do all the cool things we did last year, but do some other cool things, make it a little different? How do we involve, we've got the Marine Corps League, which, we'd like to get to this year. They've been very instrumental in helping us, through some things this year. And we'd love to be able to stop in and say hello to them. Of course, we want to go back to the ballpark. We want to try to enhance what we did last year, because there might be, now that we know how things went, now that the city knows us, and trust us, and to be respectful, I think they're willing to go even further for us and do some cool things. So we want to involve more of our network, more restaurants, more bar owners, more just people that are in the town that want to be a part of this, and just expand that, and expand sort of the people that are there. I mean, we had some crappy weather last year, and I think that kept some people away. But hopefully this year they'll just say, what, it doesn't matter what the weather is, I want to be a part of that. And so we're just hoping to grow.
Absolutely. Do you think because Worcester's rolled out the red carpet, and obviously you can only fit so much like into a hike itself, like there's only so much you can cram into that day before it gets so overwhelming. Are you guys gonna like plan any like vet togethers, any events throughout the year with some of those places?
Yeah, and that's the other side of it, is that and that's how we're going to get it involved. I mean, we had a screening of the hike back, earlier in the year, and we involved the Marine Corps League in that. There'll be some different opportunities for the meet and greet this year. So yeah, we can involve, and there's been a couple other places, where we're looking at different events, different gaming nights, different events we can go to, whether it's a ball game, a hockey game. There's a lot of places and a lot of people that we can see out there. And that's what's great about Worcester, is that there's just so many opportunities to get people together in somewhat of a centralized location. I mean, Worcester's, we harped on it a lot last year, but it's considered the heart of the Commonwealth, because it's the geographical center of Massachusetts. And for where our people live, yeah, it's not all that far for a lot of people to come out. And even for some of the people in Connecticut, right? It's not a very long drive for a lot of those people there to come up. So, we think that, we can get a lot of people out that way.
Yeah, I think it's just like, it was only like 2 hours, I think, the drive up there for that hike from where I'm at in Connecticut. So it's definitely, it's not a haul. So it's not bad.
Yeah.
What so one more question for you. So knowing that we're going to people listening to this, maybe haven't heard of us, haven't pulled the trigger yet, what advice would you be able to give them about the Silkies hikes, the vet togethers, and our organization, to get them to come out and be a part of us?
The thing I'd first say is, these are your people, and these are the people that, good or bad, when you want to be around, because they'll lift you up, they'll pick you up, they'll carry you along, whatever you're going through. It might seem overwhelming, right? It could be overwhelming for anyone. Your people are not. They weren't my people when I started out, and it felt overwhelming. But now I look forward to being there. I look forward to being around the group. Doesn't matter if they're people I know or I don't know, because I know that everybody is accepting of each other. Right. And, like I said, there's no judgment. The event itself, it's not an athletic event. We're just there to be there for each other. And that, when there's no judgment and there's no expectation, you can let your guard down and you can get to what's real, and you can get to the support that you need, and for your reason for being there.
How can people find more about Worcester? You guys have a Facebook page and stuff, right?
Yeah. We've got our Facebook page. We've got our Instagram page, IW.Worcester, IW.Milford. But yeah, there are Facebook pages as well. They can go through the Irreverent Warriors page, the events page, the communities page. So there's a lot of ways to kind of track us down that way as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, I think we covered everything. That about wraps everything up. Do you have anything else you want to say about the hikes, the organization, Worcester, anything like that?
I think we've covered a lot. Like you said, I'll just keep reiterating what I said. It's get involved. I tell everybody, it's important to just be there, because you'll get it when you're there. Our job is to help facilitate that. So just know that when you come to an event, yeah, it might be your first time. You might not know anybody, but I think that's how a lot of people started out. And, we will make every effort. And as our teams have grown, that's the job of our teams as well, is to make you feel comfortable, to make you. And you know what? If you just want to kind of keep your distance for a while until you're ready to engage with people, that's cool too. But we'll respect that space and we'll give you that opportunity. But don't let that be a reason why you don't come out.
Right. Absolutely. And I know that I know I can't speak for everyone, and I think I probably said it earlier on, but you and the passion and dedication that you've shown for the mission of the organization and the organization itself is absolutely appreciated by your team, the veterans and the community, as well as the town of Worcester, for everything you're doing for veterans. So keep doing great things. And we definitely appreciate everything that you and Val have done for everything for us as veterans up there in Worcester.
Well, thanks for having me on today. This was great. It's always fun to talk to you, to talk about what we do, and I just love being on.
We will see everybody. We're coming out October 5th, right? That's what we got this year.
Yeah, October 5th in Worcester.
Yeah, October 5th in Worcester. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We want to thank Bob from IW Worcester for spending some time with us today. Thank you so much, Bob. We appreciate it. Thank you all for listening in. Be sure to share the episode far and wide so that we can bring a little humor and camaraderie to anybody who might be listening in. So until next time, stay irreverent, my friends.